Well, there is no slowdown in the number of asylum seekers arriving in the city asking for shelter.
So officials estimate nearly 100,000 migrants have already arrived in New York City since last spring. Mayor Adams says the city is beyond the breaking point. The crisis is costing the city billions. He made another plea for federal help yesterday.
If things do not change, our new estimates have us spending nearly $5 billion on this crisis in the current fiscal year. That's up from the $1.4 billion we spent last fiscal year.
It's a lot of money. Joining us right now with how the city plans on managing this crisis, New York City Emergency Management Commissioner Iscol. Nice to have you back on Good Day
Thanks
New
for
York.
having me on. It's good to be here with you, Rosanna.
So the mayor says it's about $10 million a day.
So it's close to that. That's correct.
So what can be done? How can you manage this?
Yeah. So first off, I am incredibly proud of the work the city has done to this point. And just one correction, you said 100,000 have come through the city. That's almost 100,000 that the city has cared for. There's probably many more who have come to the city that have not relied on city services, and we currently have close to 60,000 in our care, including close to 20,000 children. And so I think, you know, as we've been struggling with this over the last year, I am incredibly proud of the work the city has done to this point. I mean, I thought the breaking point would have been when we hit 25,000 people, or 30,000 people, or 50,000 people. But this has been a humanitarian crisis that has largely been hidden from public view over the last year until just last week or a couple weeks ago when we started to have a few people sleeping outside the streets.
A few people sleeping outside? Lots of people?
A few hundred.
Okay.
And we were able to get them off the streets. But the fact is that when you look at the history of forced migration in this country, and this is not the first time we've had to deal with it. We've dealt with it with European refugees after World War II, with Vietnamese in the 70s.
There was a difference. The city did not put people up, give them food and shelter, did not give them phones and gift cards.
Well, that's exactly
my
point.
They were on their own when they came here to this country.
That's actually not true. In each of those cases, there was a federally led effort. The Cuban boat crisis in 79-80 was a federally declared disaster. The federal government did a lot to resettle Vietnamese. The federal government.
And the federal government, they're here now with the monitor, right? They're in town?
Well, not a monitor. They're here with a team that has come to assess the situation and then go back to DC.
And what are they doing and seeing?
So we took some of the team members around yesterday. They toured the operations at the Roosevelt Hotel, which is our arrival center. That's the first front door to the system that we've built of over 200 or close to 200 emergency shelters around the city where we're housing close to 60,000 people. So they saw the arrival center at the Roosevelt Hotel. That's the system with those 200 emergency shelters that has been at capacity now for weeks, if not months. They toured some of the respite centers with us. These are some of the converted places like gyms, closed parochial schools, commercial spaces.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
We understand that this is wonderful that they get to see all this stuff, but what do you need them to do?
It's a great question. So the mayor has been very clear about this going back to last fall, at least this last fall, that we really need 4 things from the federal government. Number 1 is we need them to declare this a federal emergency, and it is. Number 2
and what would that do for the city?
So it opens up federal resources, right? So there's the Stafford Act, and there's federal law, and there's precedent about how the state, local jurisdictions, and the federal government interact in times of emergencies. As an emergency manager, you know, you look at what's going on in Hawaii right now, this incredible tragedy, Hurricane Ian in the fall, the floods in upstate New York.
And they're going to declare a state of emergency there.
They'll get those funds. And that ushers in state and federal resources.
Well, why hasn't our governor done that? I mean, the mayor has asked for assistance. She's like, here's another $1 billion. That's not going to fix the problem. Why has our governor not declared a state of emergency?
I would have to refer you to the state to answer that question. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know as an emergency manager, we have always been able to depend upon, in a emergency beyond the scope and scale of our abilities to handle in the city, to be able to turn around and hand the football off to the state or to the federal government and to look for help. That's the way it's supposed to work. And we've been turning around looking to hand this football off or looking for support, and it hasn't been there yet.
So have you contacted the governor, though? Because you're needing that support. You're needing that connection with the governor.
The mayor is in very close contact with the governor, excuse me. I'm in very close contact with my counterpart at the state, but not the governor directly. And we're asking for help. The other things that we need beyond the federal declaration is financial support, a real decompression strategy, right? How can we relocate people not just to New York, but around the country? And then the biggest thing is work authorization. We have a lot of people who are coming here, and that's the real exit strategy. People that are coming here, they want to work, Many of them are working, but that's the exit strategy for getting them out of the care of the city.
Let me ask you, I know you say they want to work, then they're not working. They're working because, you know, I was reading in the paper today, Lady Gaga's father has a restaurant on the West Side, and the city moved in some migrants into a hotel right nearby. He said there's all these e-bikes, e-scooters all over. They're working.
Right. So they're working in the informal economy. There's some that are working as delivery workers, but look, we've got tens of thousands of jobs alone in this state, in hospitality, in construction, in agriculture, home aids. We have 10,000 home aid jobs in this state. So there's a lot of jobs that they don't have access to. They don't have workforce training.
But are they
available to.
qualified for that?
So first off, a lot of the folks that are coming here have remarkable qualifications. It's incredibly impressive. There is a misperception about immigrants that about who usually comes to this country. Often it's folks from the middle class, it's people who were professionals back home, and we're seeing a lot of that in the respite centers. But there's also always opportunities for OSHA training, workforce training, and so I think that in the middle of any crisis there's opportunity. The workforce authorization, it can be a boon to the economy. There's jobs that need to be filled.
So what's the lag on that? Well, why is that not getting pushed through?
It's a great question, and I don't have the answer to that, but there has been, it's one of the biggest asks of the federal government to provide those work authorizations. Even just, you think about the payroll taxes, right, and the state and local taxes we could reap from people working.
So, you know, listen, we're all human, and you know, and we want the best for these people who come here. They've gone through so much, but I got to talk for New Yorkers.
Right.
We're in a serious situation here. The mayor said what it's costing to house and take care of these people who've come to our country. I mean, it's 3 budgets of New Yorkers: fire department, sanitation department. What was the 3rd budget? Combined.
Right. Yeah.
And something's going to give. And we pay high taxes in New York City.
Yeah.
You've already taken away our sports from the city kids.
Well, we haven't. We're doing everything we can to sort of
Randall's Island.
Randall's Island. And this is one of the things. So Randall's Island, you know, and I appreciate you asking about that. We have not even been able to get facilities to house people, even locations. And so our #1 priority right now is keeping children off the streets. We have almost 20,000 kids in our care. And so the best way of doing that is to move single adults out of hotels, out of other shelters where we can put families with children in order to open up these large facilities. There are not a lot of places around the city where you can put up tents of that scale. And there's very few that are owned by the city. And right now, for the most part, the only sites we have access to are ones in the city. But I will say, in terms of kids' sports, as a parent of 4, as a parent of kids who plays,
understand what it's like.
I understand what's going on. We are working very closely with DOE and parks to mitigate all the effects of that and to find other places for those kids to be able to play sports. It is a priority of mine as a parent. Is a priority of this administration, and it is something that we're working very hard to address.
What does the city look like 1 year from now if this does not change?
You know, I will say that there is a heroic effort that takes place every day amongst a number of agencies and people who work for the city and community-based organizations. I am incredibly surprised that we did not reach this breaking point 3 months ago or 4 months ago. It is a full-on sprint every day, and I will tell you that we will continue to do all we can to meet our legal obligations, right, under the right to shelter, to meet our moral obligations.
That has to change too.
But I think the mayor made very clear yesterday what we are looking at, how severe this is, and the fact is that we really need more help from the state, and we need help from the federal government, as there has been precedent for in every other migration crisis this country has faced going back to World War II.
Well, you got your hands full. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
You know, listen, we all want to succeed in New York, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned about our city.
And we all are. But I appreciate your concern. I appreciate you guys taking the time to cover this story.